back to the daily grind. Thanks for checking out the channel. Make sure to hit subscribe if you're new and hit thumbs up if you're not a baby back bagel biting bitch boy, cause you know what time it is. It's full time.
MMA.
George St. Pierre got a special edition of the MMA Hour today with Ariel Helwani. After George St. Pierre, Ariel Helwani was also joined by Paulo Costa in studio. But the main reason for the special edition of the MMA Hour, which is usually on Monday, was for George St. Pierre, who was rushed to the hospital after his fight with Michael Bisping, so he could not do a post-fight press conference. So this was kind of like, you know, GSP's post-fight press conference, but it was on the MMA Hour. So you can go watch that full interview if you want. It was only like 25 minutes or so with George St. Pierre, but the main things that I took away from it was George St. Pierre was non-committal about his, you know, UFC next fight, like fighting Robert Whittaker or what's next. You know, there's been a lot of talk about Conor McGregor, actually more than I thought there would be. I mean, you can't be too surprised at GSP versus Conor McGregor, because that's literally, I'm talking insane numbers. Like, if you're talking about business, that's the fight to make. Nate Diaz, move aside. I'm Tony Ferguson, move aside. Robert Whittaker, move aside. I mean, if you want to go UFC Ultimate Fighting Circus style, most money, that's GSP versus Conor. That shit is insane. I've heard casual fans say, oh man, GSP doesn't stand a chance. And then I've heard some people say, Conor would get fucking ragdolled, wrestle fucked, and slammed around. And then the hardcore fans, they just don't know what to think, because the fight's so good, you gotta be excited, but at the same time, we're like, but what about the fucking interim champions? And how does it, you know what I'm saying? How does this really make sense as far as these two guys are, one's 185, one's 155, they'd be fighting at 170, they've got belts to defend. I mean, what the fuck's really going on? And then also, you know what I'm saying? So you got to think about the integrity of the sport. That's the only problem with this fight. That's literally the only problem with this fight. But there's one way that we could bring back the integrity of the sport and make this fight even bigger, if you could imagine that. Now, the UFC would have to take a gamble. You know what I'm saying? But if this gamble paid off, it would be insane. Now, the gamble is GSP would have to defend the belt, or Conor would have to defend the belt. Maybe just Conor. If Conor beats Tony Ferguson, then they can do the fight. You know what I'm saying? Because then Conor will have defended a belt that'll shut up all of those people. Also, he won't have the fucking defend or vacate going on. You know what I'm saying? How long has it been since Conor won the lightweight title? He hasn't defended it. Went and fought Floyd Mayweather. So it's been almost a year since he's got the title and hasn't defended it. So at some point, the UFC strips inactive champions. Now, of course, it's Conor. He gets to do whatever the fuck he wants. I get that. But at the same time, there's a whole fucking lightweight division that needs to get some shit shaking, get the deck shuffling. So even if Conor can go on and fight GSP, if he doesn't defend the title, he might have to give up the belt. So if Conor defends the belt and then fights GSP, that makes the fight that much bigger, and it makes sense. But I don't know, man. This is really interesting. Now, GSP has said again that it's in his contract to defend versus Whittaker. Maybe he vacates. But also, he said it's up to Dana White. Well, Dana White's been coming out and saying he'll be defending versus Whittaker. So the Conor McGregor versus GSP talk, I mean, it's just kind of insane to think about how big that fight would be and how crazy that fight is. Like, it's really mind-boggling to think about how fucking big that shit would be, and how just to even think about that fight, it's so dope. I mean, in my head, of course, I see George St. Pierre dragging Conor down, you know what I'm saying? But he's just way bigger. He wrestled. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Conor McGregor's wrestling. Who has he fought that's as big or has the wrestling of George St. Pierre? Literally nobody. It would be like David versus Goliath. And but if anyone can do it right, it's Conor. I mean, that's what they say. I don't know. Oh, the hardcore MMA fan in me is like, get the fuck out of here. You know George St. Pierre's got this. But then the fanboys in me is like, man, that left though. So you know what I'm saying? Oh my God, that fight would be the shit. But George St. Pierre in his contract has to defend versus Robert Whittaker, and Conor McGregor's got to defend versus Tony Ferguson. The hardcore fan in me is killing that shit. God, I don't even know what the fuck else to say, man. It is what it is. Let the full-time family know what the fuck you time out in the comment. Out.
Bye, Felicia.